You haven't come here for a long, boring and pointless intro, so without further delay, here are a load more football facts that I like, following on from 2 previous videos, hint hint. Stephen Ireland was once left out of international duty as his nan had died. Poor granny. He even asked manager Sven-Göran Eriksson to leave him out of a club match as he had to help with funeral arrangements, and he was still too upset, bless him. Except it later transpired that his dear nan was still alive and made up a big lie so that he could Netflix and chill with his girlfriend. Ireland apologised and Eriksson described him as stupid. Not the only player to fib, in 2004 Mohamed Sissoko was released by his club Valencia to play an international match for Mali, a match which was later discovered never took place. And in 2007 Anton Ferdinand was allowed to visit his sick granny. Honestly, what is it about grannies? But instead he flew to America for a party, for which he was fined 2 weeks' wages. Another player who got out of matches for completely different reasons was Italy and Lazio midfielder Luciano Recchioni, who had a wicked sense of humour when in 1978 pretended to rob a jewellery store in Rome but was shot dead at the age of 28 by the owner, who didn't have such a wicked sense of humour. In 1967, fans of Independiente broke in and buried 7 black cats within the ground of rivals Racing Club, with black cats being considered extremely unlucky in Argentina, while upper necks led Racing from being giants of the country to being relegated and bankrupt. Racing didn't win another title for 35 years, and only when the 7th cat was finally dug up in 2001 did Racing finally win another league title. In 1996, Fluminense avoided relegation by having the league conveniently expanded, and 3 years later Botafogo were relegated, but persuaded the FA to reallocate some points on a technicality, which meant that Gamos were relegated instead, but the club went to court and they were reinstated. The situation was only resolved by creating a complex, bonkers new one-off tournament made up of 116 clubs. Yup, 116 clubs. In the 1998 Tiger Cup, of course, who could forget the 1998 Tiger Cup, Thailand played Indonesia with both countries already qualified. The winners would play Vietnam in the last match and the loser facing the weaker Singapore team. The game ended 3-2 as both sides stopped defending. 3 of the goals came in the last 4 minutes, and Indonesian defender Mursyid Effendi deliberately scored an own goal. It boggles my brain that anyone considered Vietnam to be such an intimidating opponent that they'd score own goals to avoid them. In any case, both teams were fined by the authorities and FIFA banned Effendi from football for life. Talking of own goals, Pat Cruz scored what is believed to be the fastest own goal of all time after 6 seconds. And in August 1985, Bayern's Helmut Winkelhofer won the Bundesliga Goal of the Month. Brilliant, fair play. Of course a celebration for the right back, as he didn't score many in his career, except that the goal was an own goal which he smashed past his own keeper from 30 yards. Deadpool was seen collecting a medal in Russia, which turned out to be striker Artem Dzyuba wearing a Deadpool costume for some reason, which he probably did just for social media. Talking of which, Bayer Leverkusen had to improvise when they had no photos of Patrick Schick's goal. Brazil take note, because if you get hammered 7-0 you'd be forgiven for thinking that you've probably got no chance of a comeback, but that thought didn't go through the minds of players from SD Oldenburg Girl in Germany, who was 7-0 down to Vasbeck within an hour but went on to win the match on penalties. Back in 1923, tiny little Nelson FC in the 10th tier of English football was celebrating their promotion to a proper big boys league for the first time, and celebrated by touring Europe before the league started. During this tour, not only did they have the absolute cheek to play against Real Madrid, but they thrashed them 4-2, becoming the first English team to beat Real Madrid in Spain, in Nelson's only ever season in a proper league. Unluckily for Real Madrid, they also lost the Copa del Rey final 4 years later, to Motherwell. Yes, Motherwell from Scotland, which ain't in Spain, making them the only non-Spanish team to win the Copa del Rey. Kind of, it was actually an unofficial tournament after the real tournament was played earlier in the season, but let's not let this minor detail get in the way of a good story. And the goalkeeper for Winners Real Union that day? Antonio Emery, who would go on to have a grandson in the sport. Only once of 3 clubs from the same country won all 3 main UEFA competitions in the same season. 1990, when Milan won the European Cup, Sampdoria won the European Cup Winners' Cup, and Juventus won the UEFA Cup. Teams bending the rules is nothing new, but sneaking extra players onto the pitch is a step too far. In February 2025, Fortuna Sittard had 12 players on the pitch for 22 seconds in a league match against Heerenveen, and shortly after their new 4-3-4 formation they scored. Something that had happened before with Bayern having 12 players during the match against Freiburg for a short time in 2022. And the same happened in the FA Cup back in 2000 when Tranmere played with 11 players against Sunderland, even though Clint Hill had been sent off. And talking of bending the rules, legend has it that Villa keeper Bill Dunning broke the rules to such an extent that the FA were forced to bring in a new rule. When Stoke awarded a last-minute penalty against him in 1891, he kicked the ball out the stadium to prevent Stoke being able to take the kick. By the time they got the ball back, the match was over, and later that season the FA brought in injury time. Legend has it, anyway. Funnily enough, there's limited reports on it, and I wasn't there. And talking of rules, spare a thought for Porto defender Niran Perez, who pointed for teammate Z Pedro to clear the ball, only for Z Pedro to blast the ball against his arm and give away a penalty. Some good blags now, such as when a fake Aberdeen account announced the signing of Turkish international Yedar Selzovan, which sounds suspiciously like your dad sells cosmetic products, a signing which was announced by Sky News even though the player doesn't exist. Similarly, in 2016, YouTubers Woody and Kleiny set up a prank pretending to be a sports reporter outside the Emirates, commenting on a fake player named Fernando Verst, with some fans claiming he'd be a good signing and other such nonsense. Jefferson Luis has played for 41 different clubs in his career, I think, I lost count, and I'm sure there'll be others, but El Loco Sebastian Ebru played for 31 clubs and John Burridge played for 29. Goalkeeper Andre Krul, no relation to Tim, has played professionally on 6 continents following spells here, 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 here and now here. But a player who can not only match that, but he's still the only player to play in 6 different FIFA confederations, Lutz Pfanny-Steel. And if that wasn't interesting enough, he kind of achieved this after dying, after he was declared dead on the pitch for 3 minutes during a match in 2002. He's previously been falsely jailed for match fixing in Singapore, and once faced deportation from New Zealand when he kidnapped a penguin and kept it in his bath. What is it to say about keepers? You have to be crazy to be a goalkeeper? In December 2004, Real Madrid and Real Sociedad played a 6-minute game of football. In the 87th minute of the match and the score was levelled at 1-1, a fake bomb threat caused the match to be abandoned. So the remaining 3 minutes plus injury time was played a few weeks later in January 2005. During this time, Madrid sacked their manager, meaning that technically they had 2 different managers for the same match, and Zidane even managed to score the winning goal in those 6 minutes. And a similar thing happened in 2023 when the Waalwijk Ajax match was abandoned in the 84th minute after injury to Waalwijk keeper Etienne Vassen, where the last 6 minutes were played over 2 months later. I've mentioned before about how the referee who failed to spot Diego Maradona punching the ball into the net later appeared holding the Maradona shirt. Very weird. And referee Marco Antonio Ortiz Nava is at it now when he asked for Lionel Messi's shirt after a match in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, for which he was disciplined. I remember when every other player in the South Korea lineup was named Kim. Well, Florzheim Zwei, who play low down the German leagues, named a lineup where all 11 players have the same surname, as at one point player manager Haris Kurtanovic had brought in 15 family members, as you do. And talking of names with more players named after players, Gabriel Nistelrooy Tamin plays for JDT Malaysia. Gabriel Batistuta Berling also plays in Malaysia, and who can forget the famous number 50, Diego Baggio at Kuching City. There's Rivaldo, no not that one, in South Africa, and Georgi Kinkladze at Sarawak, but they didn't want to make it too obvious, so they slapped Tom at the end. The national team captain is named after 2 incredible players, Johan Cruyff and Dion Dublin. No, he actually was. And finally the Romanian Romario, not because he's only good, but because he's Romanian and named Romario. Staying in Romania, 2nd Division team CS Mioveni were given just a 74-point deduction due to debts to all players and managers, were later expelled and didn't even finish last anyway due to Viitorul being dissolved. And over the border in Bulgaria, Arda Karjali held a minute silence following the sad death of their player Petko Ganchev. Heartbreaking. A player who was very much alive. Ivor Broadis was player manager for Carlon in the 40s, and he's not only the youngest player manager to be a player manager at the age of 23, but he also sold himself to Sunderland. Back in 2010, Crystal Palace used 30-year-old right-back Danny Butterfield up front for an FA Cup match against Wolves, as you do, and this bizarre decision paid off as he scored a hat-trick and Palace won 3-1. What prompted manager Neil Warnock to play him there, you ask? Maybe a moment of inspiration? Maybe Butterfield was banging in the goals in training? No, his wife had a dream that he'd score the winner. Not only that, he scored his hat-trick in 6 minutes 48 seconds, which remains the club's fastest ever hat-trick. In my last facts video, there were some interesting links to players' names and clubs, and carrying on that trend, such as when Will Sutton scored against Sutton, Bobby Charlton scored twice on his Man United debut against Charlton, Wayne Carlisle scored not once but twice against Carlisle, Niall Flint got a goal against Flint Town, Ricky Villa once scored against Aston Villa, just like Alan Sunderland scored against Sunderland, and James Chester once scored against Man United. Did you expect me to say Chester? How predictable. But you'll never beat the time that Hartlepool won with goals from Hartley and Poole. And finally, ultimate shithousery from Everton, as there's a shopping centre in England called Liverpool 1, so Everton opened a shop there called Everton 2, meaning that the address for the store is Everton 2, Liverpool 1. And that's it, no long boring outro. Watch my last facts video here, or a different one I made here, or some of my other vids, and like it and subscribe and all that good stuff. Bye!